Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, wherever you are. Or good morning, as the case may be. And Merry Christmas. Hope you're all enjoying the vacations, if you have them, wherever you are. All right, let's see who we have. Assalamu alaikum, Adriana. Good to see you. And Christmas to you. Alhamdulillah. Brad. Childers, excellent. Good to see you. You'll catch us later. Okay, yep. Probably have a celebration here. There you go. Thank you so much. And good to see Iron with us again. How you doing, Iron? Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Hector. Good to see you as well. And Sora as well. All right, brilliant. Okay, so excuse the baby in the background. It's just going to be a simple one, something to share, which is moving on from the topics we've been going through the last, I think, 2 times. We've been talking about shirk. But now we're just going to move on, just something just very basic and simple, something which is, we're all pretty well aware of it, how hadiths and narrations are taken to be above the Qur'an. And, sometimes you come across people who will deny that, right? So, the average sort of like naive, everyday Muslim, he knows that the Quran is the primary source, and of course, all of the scholars will tell him that. They will say, yes, our sources are first Quran, then Sunnah. The Quran comes first. But of course, that's all just it's by theory in talk. In reality, the Quran is being curtailed, interpreted by. Put through the lens of the narrations and hadiths and the sayings of scholars, etc. So in the end, the Quran comes to be a very minor source for mainstream Islam. But what's the simplest way to show that? The simplest way to show anybody who could ask, or if you ever get into sort of a discussion, is mention the very well-known idea that the Sunnah, and this is talking about Sunni Islam mostly, but it exists also in other sects, that the Sunnah can abrogate the Quran. Okay, so that's a clear-cut example of how the Quran is put above the Sunnah. Give me a second. All right, okay. So I thought I'd just show some examples of that. Examples of where scholars have said clearly and emphatically, explicitly, examples of where the Sunnah is said to abrogate standing verses of the Quran. And at the end, we'll talk about how it's actually a lot more than the ones which they will admit to explicitly. But let me bring that up first, and we'll just go through the examples. And then, of course, as always, opened up to anybody who would like to share anything. Remember again that these streams are made really just to encourage people to contemplate the Quran and to share insights. They weren't really intended for me to be sort of like just giving my opinions or this or that or the other. All right, okay, so let's go through some of these and then I'll get back to the comments and see if there's anybody who would like to come on. So abrogation of the Quran by the Sunnah. So first of all, to be fair, some say, meaning in theory at least, like we said, in practice it's another story. Some say that the Quran cannot be abrogated by the Sunnah. So there are some among the scholars who would say this emphatically so, that the Quran cannot be abrogated by the Sunnah. In practice, though, in nearly all cases, in practice, there are occasions where it's not done. It's not carried out, and we'll see some of these examples in a minute. Okay, they just won't say explicitly. Okay, they will just say that this is the Sunnah. We follow the Sunnah, and it's explaining the Quran. When in reality, it's just outright abrogating it. Anyway, and the majority have said that the mutawatir, the mass transmitted hadiths, can abrogate the Quran. And then it isn't really clear if the majority also say that even a ahad hadith, so basically all the narrations and hadiths are divided into ahad, singular. That doesn't mean only one person narrated it on singular chains. It can be many chains, or mutawatir and ahad. Basically, that's the main division of hadith. So they say that mutawatir can abrogate, and it's not clear. A lot of the, sometimes you find that they will say that the majority say that even a ahad, a normal hadith, as long as it's considered sahih, it can abrogate the sunnah. And in fact, that's practically, in practical application, that is what happens. But it isn't clear. Sometimes they say in theory again that only a mutawatir hadith can abrogate, and a non-mutawatir hadith cannot abrogate. One which is just sahih doesn't abrogate the sunnah. But even those scholars who say that, if you bring them examples of, okay, this is the fiqh practice which you are calling to, it's based on this narration, and here's the Quran giving a different thing, what is correct, they will go along with the fiqhi scholarly opinion. But anyway, let's look at some of the examples. Most of the examples are accepted, but some aren't. And it's just a jumble, to be honest. But anyway, let's look at them. A famous example, usually when you ask this question of any scholar, they will give you this example. Those who say yes, the Sunnah can abrogate the Quran, they will give this example of this verse, which says, كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين. Prescribed for you when death approaches any one of you, if he leaves wealth, okay, good things, he should make a bequest or bequeath for parents and near relatives. And a bequeath is basically when you writing a will. When you write a will and you say, I want so much and so much wealth of my wealth after I die to be given to so and so. So it's saying here, literally the verse is saying al-wasiyatu, wasiyah, bequeath, to parents and near relatives. Okay, and they say, of course, that this is abrogated by the hadith which says there is no bequeath to be given to those who inherit. Now, of course, parents inherit and near relatives inherit. So this is an example where they show that no, this verse has been abrogated by this. Okay, the full hadith says, إن الله أعطى كل ذي حق حقه فلا وصية لوارث. That Allah has given every person his right. Everyone who has a right in their inheritance, Allah has already given them their rights. As in, He's already set forth, this person gets a quarter, this person a third, this person, etc. The divisions which are mentioned in the Quran, God has already set them up, and so because of that, nobody who is to receive an inheritance can be given bequeath, and bequeath is something else. So that's the narration, and it clearly, of course, goes against this verse, which the verse says that the wasiyah can be given to parents and near relatives. Those who say that no, this doesn't abrogate, they have an interpretation of the hadith for that, which is good. Okay, I mean it's sort of a fair interpretation. What they say is that they are, those who interpret it that way, they are basically saying that the first part of the hadith, where the Prophet says that God has already done the distributions, okay, meaning that in previous, before the Quran, before those verses were revealed, the Arabs used to make wasiyah, to make a warith, used to do bequeath for all of their wealth, and that the hadith is really saying that the divisions in the Quran are abrogating all of the previous practices before the Quran, and that can be acceptable. That's acceptable, but we're talking here about what scholars themselves will say. There are scholars themselves that will say, no, this narration abrogates this verse. So it's an example. It's an example of that. An example of the idea, the ideology, the the principle or doctrine that some have, which is that the Sunnah can abrogate the Qur'an. I mean, we already believe that's wrong. If others among the traditional scholars also sort of like argue against certain examples of that, okay, that's great. But I'm just showing here examples where it is accepted by many. So that's one example. Another example, and again, it's to do with inheritance. It's all those verses of inheritance which mention. So all the verses of inheritance, they don't say anything about how a Muslim cannot inherit from a non-Muslim, or the Muslim, if he dies, he doesn't. His children don't, and his children are not Muslims, that they don't inherit. That's just not there at all. The divisions of the Quran on inheritance are just about blood relations, relatives. Okay, the father, the son, the mother, the sister, all of this, irrespective of religion. Okay, so a Muslim in the Quran can inherit from his non-Muslim father, and a Muslim father can be inherited by his non-Muslim son, daughter, or children, etc. Okay, it's not an issue. But that is all put aside. That idea is said to be abrogated by the idea that those of two different religions cannot inherit each other. Okay, the hadith which says, لا يتوارث أهل ملتين شتى. That those of two different religions cannot inherit each other, which is a bizarre wording because it's talking about all religions. It's as if it's saying, oh, also the Christians cannot inherit from Jews, and Jews cannot inherit from Christians, and all other. No, it's not being specified just to be about Islam, which is a weird way of wording it. So it gets you wondering: is there some sort of deliberate, was something happening with regard to inheritance that created these hadiths, which are being used to supersede the verses of the Quran? Makes you wonder. Another example, also brought forward a lot, is the verse in Surah An-Nisa, which is taken to be about male homosexuality, right? So it says اللذان واللذان يأتيانها منكم فآذوهما. Okay, and those two who commit it among you. Here the translation says dishonor them both. The Arabic just says basically فآذوهما, so like harm them both in some way, make them, punish them in some way, either a fine, a tax, I don't know what it's going to be, but just it's left to us. It just says أذوهما فأذوهما فإن تابا وأصلحا فأعرضوا عنهما. But if they repent and correct themselves, leave them alone, because God is forgiving, merciful. And what's said is that that's abrogated by the hadith من وجدتموه يعمل عمل قوم لوط فاقتلوا الفاعل والمفعول به. Right, whoever you find doing the actions of the people of Lot, then kill him. Sorry, the whole thing doesn't seem to be. Let me see if I can get this to be put in different. Let's put this in a separate. Let's put this in a separate slide. Yeah, so it says, whoever you find doing the acts of the people of Lut, kill the one who did it and the one who it is done on, which again is very strange. Kill the one who did it and the one whom it's done on, which makes it sound that even if it's forced, like a rape, then also that person will be killed, which makes no sense. And the next part makes even less sense. It says, and من وجدتموه وقع على بهيمة فاقتلوه واقتلوا البهيمة. And if you find anybody whom you find has done it on an animal, kill him and kill the animal for some reason. Okay, but the point is that this is meant to be abrogating this verse, which says that doesn't say kill. Okay, it just says that they are to be punished in some way, harmed in some way, but if they repent, then you leave them be. And in similar fashion, there's the verse which is just before it, which is taken again to mean homosexuality between women. So it says, وَاللَّاتِ يَأْتِينَ الْفَاحِشَةَ مِنْ نِسَائِكُمْ فَاسْتَشْهِدُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ أَرْبَعَةً مِنْكُمْ. Those who commit unlawful sexual intercourse of your women, bring against them 4 witnesses from among you. And if they testify, confine the guilty women to their houses until death takes them, or Allah ordains for them a way. أو يجعل الله لهن سبيلا حتى يتوفاهن الموت أو يجعل الله لهن سبيلا. And the idea here is that there's a hadith which says, okay, first of all, so this person some say that it's actually talking about women who commit fahisha with men, right? So it's with men, whereas really the correct idea is that this is about women among themselves, just as the next verse after it, which we just looked at, is about men among themselves, right? So it's not about zina, right? But anyway, here with the idea that they consider this to be concerning men with women, as a fahsha, as zina, outside of marriage, or between a married and unmarried. They take this hadith which says, خذوا عني, take from me, قد جعل الله لهن سبيلا. God has ordained the way for them, as in this verse. And then of this verse which says, until God confine them in their homes until death takes them, or God ordains a way out for them. So the hadith says, okay, God has ordained the way out for them. What is that way out for them? Well, if it's a unmarried woman with an unmarried man, then the lashes, and adding on top of that, exile for a year, which isn't in the lashing, which is for zina, not for unmarried with unmarried. It's for when a woman is married. But anyway, in the Qur'an, it's just lashes mentioned, 100 lashes, and that's it. There's no exiling for a year. In this hadith, it has it. No, it's the unmarried with the unmarried with unmarried, then 100 lashes and exile for a year. Whereas the married with the married, it's 100 lashes plus stoning as well, both. All right. So the point is that the idea that حتى يتوفاهن الموت is abrogated. The idea that you can just confine them to their homes, that's not an option anymore. Okay, according to this hadith has abrogated it. Let me just try and fix this up, because again, it's not all appearing on the screen. Yeah, let's put that in a different slide. Okay. So this is again that. So there's no more confine them to the houses, and that part is considered to be abrogated. So anyway, the point is that however they interpret it, this hadith is said to abrogate this verse. Okay, this hadith is said to abrogate this verse. Another example of that is, of course, all the verse which says, the verse again in Surah An-Nisa, which lists all the women whom it is unlawful to marry, and then the last verse in that sequence says all other women are lawful to marry. So you can marry all other women except those mentioned in those verses, right? So forbidden to marry are those whom your fathers have married, and then it says your mothers, your daughters, your sisters, etc. Okay, and then at the end of that it says, and lawful for you are all other women. All of them. We've sort of been through that verse when we were talking about marrying mushrikeen. But anyway, so the narration which is said to abrogate, part of this, it's this part is now abrogated. That no, not all women are lawful. There are some which are still not lawful. So it's abrogation which is more like an addition. So that is, which is, it says, لا يجمع الرجل بين المرأة وعمتها ولا بين المرأة وخالتها. That a man cannot marry a woman and her paternal nor her maternal aunt. So you can't marry a woman. And, if you're going to marry more than one wife can't be a woman and the other one be her aunt, nor her aunt, neither her paternal aunt nor her maternal aunt. You can't join between them. And of course, the Quran does not mention that. The Quran only mentions وَأَن تَجْمَعُ بَيْنَ الْأُخْتَيْنِ, and that it's forbidden to marry two sisters at the same time. Okay, the Quran says أن تجمع بين الأختين. It doesn't say أن تجمع بين الأختين وبين المرأة وعمتها وخالتها. But so this hadith is said to abrogate the verse which says all other women are lawful. No, not all other women are lawful. Included in unlawful are this category, that you join, that you marry a woman and one of her aunts, whether paternal or maternal. Okay, so that's it. I didn't want to go through too many examples, but those are some standard examples which are explicitly stated by many to be abrogated in the Quran. In reality, a lot more narrations are used to abrogate the Quran, without admitting it. So the hadith which say that apostates should be killed, for example, they abrogate verses of the Quran, really. Okay, they will not say that these are abrogating the verses of the Quran, but in the end, they are, right? Because what they will say is, no, actually some other verse in the Quran abrogates those ideas. Like they will say that the sword verse example, well, the sword verse doesn't say to kill apostates. And the idea that apostates should be killed comes directly from a narration. Okay, and so when it's mentioned to them, the verses of freedom of religion, they reply with this hadith, thus showing that they are really abrogating those verses with that hadith, even if they don't say explicitly that yes, this hadith abrogates those verses. But there are many examples of this type of abrogation. And furthermore, nearly all the verses that are accepted to be abrogated by other verses are only accepted as such by narrations of companions or later scholars who claim it so, right? So even the accepted idea that the vast majority of scholars will accept that the Quran can abrogate itself. Some verses in the Quran abrogate other verses in the Quran. Okay, then how do you know which verses abrogate which? Well, it's through narrations. Okay, so in the end, it comes down to narrations abrogating the Quran, because a narration saying that one verse abrogates another verse, that still comes down to a narration causing that. Okay, it's the narration still causing the abrogation, just because the evidence that's being claimed in narration is another verse, or usually it's not even a hadith, which brings us back to another point, that there's not a single verse nor narration of the Prophet claiming that any single verse of the Quran is abrogated by any other, let alone by his own words. So you won't find a hadith of the Prophet saying that what I'm saying here is abrogating verse X. You won't find that. Nor will you find a hadith of the Prophet where he's saying that verse X in the Quran abrogates verse Y. They don't exist. Okay, but that's a simple way to show anybody who doubts the idea of how the hadith and narrations are brought to sort of like curtail the Quran, or to distort it, or to or brought above the Quran. Simple way to show to let them know that is, even if you can't remember examples, the idea that the Sunnah can abrogate the Quran is accepted by many scholars. And that's more than enough to show that it isn't always Quran first, then Hadith, then Sunnah. No, sometimes the Sunnah is brought above the Quran and considered to be abrogating the Quran. All right, okay, that's basically it. Kept it short this time. Very good, 25 minutes. All right, let's see who we have in the chat, and if anybody would like to come on. Andrew, I wish to see the true gospel of Christ. I think he was one of the most amazing descriptions of hell and paradise. Yeah. I mean, the idea of the Injil and the gospel of Christ, I think the Injil is basically a set of teachings. I mean, I don't think that he had a scripture. Like he wasn't given a scripture like the Quran, right? The Injil isn't a. The problem is using the word scripture again. The idea of kitab, I think we've mentioned this before, but the word as it's used in the Quran, kitab, okay, it doesn't mean like a book. That's not what it means. It means prescriptions. So when we say Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, it really means the people of who have been given prescriptions, those who have been given laws. I mean, it's literally like the very first verse we looked at here, where it says, okay, kutiba alaykum, prescribed for you. Well, that's a kitab. So this verse is a kitab, okay? And the Quran talks about how in it are kutub, are books. So in the Quran are books, or one would call books, but really it's not books, it's prescriptions, okay? The word kitab in the Quran really means the laws, prescriptions, and rules, So like this, kutiba alaykum, it's written upon you, that when death approaches one of you and you're leaving behind wealth, that you should write a bequeath for your parents and near of kin. Okay, that's a kitab, all right? So when we talk about the Injil, it wasn't an actual, I don't think it was an actual book in the way that the Quran is a revealed book. He was given revelation and laws and scriptures, okay, which is part of what it says, right? And to make lawful for you some of what had been made haram for you before. Okay, that was part of the Injil. So I think the gospel of Jesus was a set of teachings. There was no, he didn't walk around with a scripture. I mean, we don't see that in any the Gospels or anything really. There's nothing which has come down to us from any source regarding Isa alayhi salam that he had an actual worded revelation, if I can say that. I think the Quran, in fact, is unique in that, with the exception of the tablets or the alwah of Musa, okay, which later came to be part of the Torah. Of course, the Quran never uses the word Torah and Musa in the same verse. When the Quran talks about how Musa was given a kitab, the prescription or the book, right? I mean, again, prescriptions really, the laws, the rules, these kind of things. Musa was never given the Torah. Okay, the Torah is the law, it's the body of laws. I think it's the accumulation of all of the laws from all of the prophets. And the Injil is more of a spiritual teaching of Isa alayhi salam. I don't think it's of course it's still revelation, but it wasn't. The Quran is very unique in being a verbatim revelation from God. I don't think anything else was like that. Yeah, I see, brother. In fact, he states in the Bible he didn't. Yeah, he didn't come to change the laws of the prophets. Exactly. So because he was following the laws from before. He was following the Torah, right? So he kept to the Torah. What he was given, I think, was a spiritual teaching. Adam. Okay, there's somebody backstage. I'll bring you on in a minute. Just give me a second. Yeah, exactly. Didn't come. All right. Okay. Let me just see what you're saying. I wish I could come on to live and working. I talked about abrogation for some time. All right, no problem. Come on. Next time. I was going to make this yesterday, but I got busy and didn't get to. Christmas Eve, things were happening nearby, so I took my children for that. Especially since I'm a convert and I've been told I can't inherit from my father. Me and him, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's ridiculous. No, you can inherit from your father. He can inherit from you. it's a nonsensical hadith. There's nothing about that. No, parents inherit um, um, from their children. Children will inherit from their parents. You can inherit from your father. It's one of the great. I don't know what it is that led that to be done. I don't know what exactly aim of that propaganda was, or how did that get into it. But it's such a stark difference from the Quran, um, that and then I think there must be something in history. If somebody was able to do a bit of digging, you'd find the source of that to be some sort of squabble with somebody, where or trying to make somebody else not inherit. Maybe has to do with the attempts to make to portray because of course in the early days of Islam there was the heated battle sort of between the Umayyads who came to power, and the Alawis, right? So the descendants of Ali, like Hussein, and the Umayyads tried to put out that Hussein was not a Muslim, right? So people from Syria used to come and wonder, and then they were surprised that Hussein used to pray, you know. They're surprised that Ali used to pray. They used to think they were non-Muslims, right? So perhaps that propaganda has got something to do with that, because by putting that forward, it's like saying, no, you're Hussein, you're not a Muslim, so you don't inherit from your grandfather, the Prophet, the rulership, because that was the mentality that the Umayyads had, basically, dynasty. All right, okay. But again, it needs investigation. That's just sort of like a shot in the dark. All right, Adam, I'm bringing you on.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Thanks for having me on your show today.
Yes.
I was just gonna make it a quick one because I can see Brad wants to join the stream. Oh yeah, I've been on the show before.
Nice.
I'm not sure if you remember me.
Yeah, I remember.
You did a lot last time. Yeah. Thanks again for that. Yeah, so I just wanted to add like a few abrogations that I've also found on my efforts was also with the will, they've added that the bequest can only be 1/3, even though that same verse كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا وصيته. Yeah, they've added it that it can only be to 1/3 you can bequeath.
Yeah.
And then also there's other things that I've noticed, like with the Hajj, it's now only 3 days, even though Allah says in the Quran, Al-Hajj ashhurun ma'lumat. God says it's actually in the known months, and then somewhere else he says إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله. But God basically says it's 4 months, known months, Hajj months. Now it's only 3 days, and that's just like it. I mean, it's not like a huge deal, but it's still like it increases like congestion at the haram and all of that stuff. And then there's also other things that I've noticed, like that verse with, I think you've quoted it earlier, وَاللَّاتِي يَأْتِينَ الْفَاحِشَةَ مِن نِسَائِكُمْ in 4:15, the verse on woman shamelessness, how they've now abrogated it with Surah 24:2 about 100 lashes. I've actually seen an interpretation where they actually said that verse could still be reconciled with the Quran if you actually view it as plural. So that verse could actually mean that if a plural woman come forth with shamelessness, you should give them like indefinite house arrest. So they say that verse could actually be talking about like prostitution, and then you can still keep it in line. So instead of like consensual illicit sex, like in 24:2, you could actually say that indefinite house arrest could be for like women mass spreading shamelessness. And then that last portion where God says, "Oh yaj'al Allahu lahu sabila," and as God makes another way, that verse could actually be reconciled with 4:16, where God, like in that same verse with homosexuality for men, فَإِنْ تَابُوا أَصْلَحُوا وَأَعْرِضُوا عَنْهُمَا, if they repent and reform, then you can leave them alone. That could also be applied to if God makes another way, meaning that you should give them house arrest. But if the prostitutes or whatever,
those two are different, because because verse 15 is talking about women and verse 16 is talking about men. So I don't know how.
Yeah, but I mean that verse about where God makes another way out. it could mean like where God makes it another way out, like if they repent.
Yeah, but another way
then
out for the women, it says, right? يَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ
yeah, for the
لَهُنَّ
woman.
سَبِيلًا. Where is it? Bring it out.
Yeah, if God
Yeah,
makes
so
way, not
out
way out,
for
but way.
yeah,
Yeah.
lahun, but lahun, right, for the women. So I don't see
Yeah.
how the other part here, which is in the next verse. So, this is actually the next verse, that which is talking about the men if they repent. But in all cases, any attempts that they make to get out of the ideas of abrogation which they've made is a good step, even if it's not, even if it doesn't make sense. But yeah, I mean the point of this is just showing that it's an accepted
Yeah.
idea, right? That there is abrogation in the Quran.
Yes. Correct. And then I just wanted to confirm with you the verses that they use for abrogation. Do you also understand it in the context of God not abrogating, but God changing the message of the past scriptures rather than so that verses like ma nansakh min ayatin, where God says in a single ayat that I've cancelled out or abrogated or
Yeah.
gotten into oblivion or nunsiha, because in the context of Surah Baqarah, it was actually talking about the people of the book. So,
Yeah.
do you also interpret that verse on God changes the message of the past
Yeah. No,
rather
it's not
than
that it
like He
changes. Yeah.
corrected the past? Like
No.
most of the like
No.
laws on Leviticus and Deuteronomy don't apply to us like that.
Well, no, I don't see it as doing that. I see it as the verse which talk about abrogation, actually talking about. Oh, there we go. Are actually talking about abrogation of the previous signs. Yeah. So it's not talking about it's just the previous sign, because they were all asking him, why haven't signs been sent to you like it was given to previous prophets? Why don't you have like the signs, the miracles, basically, right? Why don't you have the miracles like Musa, like Isa, and these signs? And Allah saying, no, these signs, these are things which have been abrogated, or some of them have forgotten. There are some signs which some prophets had, which are completely forgotten now. ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسها, cause it to be forgotten. نأتي بخير منها أو مثلها. Okay. لم تعلم أن الله على كل شيء. Do you not know that God is able? All so those the signs mentioned are exactly, it's the signs that they keep asking for. They're asking for, give us the signs like Musa, like Isa, like this, like the previous prophets. That's why a lot of those verses are talking about the previous prophets before, right? The previous nations. Okay, they had their signs. Okay, now some of them have forgotten, or they are being replaced by something better, which is this Quran. Okay, so it's about that. It's about how the signs of the Quran, the signs which are being given to the Prophet Muhammad. Okay, these are abrogating the previous signs. Okay.
So it's kind of like elaborating on that verse in Surah 28 where they say, قَالُوا لَوْلَا أُوتِيَ مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيَ مُوسَى. Like, why don't you get the signs?
Yeah. They're asking about those kind of signs.
And
Staff for Musa, like the staff of Musa, and these kind of things. So it's talking about these kind of the miracles. Okay, that God is saying that's gone. Okay, that's abrogated. We're not doing that now. Okay, and it's mentioned as well. وما منعنا أن نرسل بالآيات إلا أن كذب به الأولون. Right? That nothing prevented us from sending the signs except that the previous peoples rejected them. Okay, previous people rejected them. Okay, so
that's very valid and fascinating interpretations. Checks out. And then do you also interpret that verse, the other verse on abrogation, وَإِذَا بَدَلْنَا آيَةً مَكَانَ آيَةٍ? Is it the same thing? We don't change an ayat. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So إذا بدلنا آية مكان آية والله أعلم بما ينزل. Okay. Right. So والله أعلم بما ينزل. قالوا إنما أنت مفتر. You are just making things up. Okay. Before, there's basically saying before, God sent these kind of signs to Musa, to Isa, and now, and God is saying, but when we exchange those signs for other signs which we have given to you, Muhammad, they say that you, Muhammad, are just making this up. Okay. You are just making it up. No, so it's talking about the signs of, the signs which are given to prophets and messengers so that people will believe, right?
Okay, perfect.
إذا بد
Yeah,
وإذا بدنا
makes sense.
آية مكان آية, right?
Yeah.
وجئتكم بآية من ربكم فاتقوا الله وأطيعون, right? Some of the prophet like Isa alayhi salam said, I've come to you with a sign from your Lord. What is a sign? إني أنفخ في الطير أخلق من الطين طير, and I create from the clay a bird, and then I blow to it so that it becomes a bird, okay? And I tell you what is in
Okay.
your houses. جئتكم بآية. Okay, these are the signs. I've come to you with these signs. These are signs. And Allah says, وَإِذَا بَدَّلْنَا آيَةٍ مَكَانَ آيَةٍ. If we exchange one sign for another sign, okay,
Yeah.
the sign that he got was that the sign that you get, or Muhammad, is our words, our very words, okay, verbatim. Which I personally, as far as I can tell, the Quran is unique in that, with the exception of the tablets of Musa. Okay, that no previous scriptures or books that were given to messengers or prophets were dictated word for word. Only the Quran. And nothing else. The Quran is unique in that. So that's the ayah that was given to the prophet. Okay.
So,
So yeah,
from an Arabic
all
perspective,
of those are about that. It's about how the Quran is abrogating the previous signs. Okay, it is the
yeah.
sign now. It is the sign.
Okay. So, from
Mm.
an Arabic perspective, because I can see you're very fluent, um, could that the previous one that I told you, because like I understand your interpretation and it does make a lot of sense, more so in fact. But so could you not interpret it as well, like God also doesn't change previous messengers except for the bigger one? So basically, messages and miracles, could you group them together as in like basically any communication from God, it can be abrogated because
You
signs and
mean the
miracles just complement it.
messages?
Yeah, like not like messages, like the actual scriptures or something like messages. MES
Well,
is
yeah. I mean, in
HE.
terms, I wouldn't call it, abrogation. I would just call it that because again, one of the verses in the Quran says, لِكُلٍ جَعَلْنَا مِنكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا, right? To each people,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have given the Sharia and a minhaj, and if God had willed, He would have made you all one. Okay, but that was not His
okay.
will. Okay, and the Sharia and minhaj which the Jews have got and the Christians have got, it's still
Oh, it's
valid.
valid.
It's
Yeah,
still
it is
valid.
valid.
Yeah, which is why the Quran says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ لَسْتُمْ عَلَى شَيْءٍ حَتَّى تُقِيمُوا التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. Okay, you have nothing until you
Yeah.
establish the Torah and Injil. Okay, and it says,
But I
ولكن
think I mean like within a Quranic
لِيَبْلُوكُم فِيمَا
perspective.
آتَاكُم. Sorry.
No, I meant like in a like for a Quranic perspective, like in case
Mm.
the Arabs were wondering why do like this Muslims or Quranic followers, why do they have a different Sharia? So in that context, God, could you interpret it as God saying, I do change my messages for different people. So I've given, yeah, for everyone, Shir'atahu min haja. So now in that
Yeah.
way, followers of Prophet Muhammad have their own one. So in that
Mm.
way, it's mansukh. Could you interpret it that way?
Well, yeah, but I don't think it's got anything. I don't think it's related to the naskh. The naskh is about the ayat, right? So it's not about
Yeah.
the shira or the minhaj, or it's about the signs. Okay, so it's not about
Makes sense.
the scriptures or these things. There are some things, of course, which have never changed, and that's what the Quran, I think, is referring to when it says dhikr. Okay, the dhikr, of course, even just by the very word of it, the remembrance, the reminder. Okay, it's those things which have always been the same. Okay, they're a reminder. Okay, because they are the same. The parts of the Quran which are the dhikr are not the parts which are different. Okay, um, from previous teachings. Okay, they are the parts which are the same as previous teachings, which is why they're called dhikr. All right, but in terms of the unique things for the prophet and for what was given to us, okay, that part of
Okay.
the sharia, that shari'at min haja, that's for
Yeah.
us, and for people they've been given a different one, and they are free to follow that. None of that is abrogated. There's no the sharias, the idea that the sharia of the prophet abrogates previous sharias, right? That's sort of like basically the idea that you're talking about. That's
Yeah, no, I
because
didn't mean that is it abrogated for them. I mean for us. Like
for us,
from a monotheistic perspective, why do we have different rights compared to them? So in that way, could you interpret it that God has also established for us our own rights? Like
I'm not sure like
yeah.
what I mean,
So
yeah, in
for
terms of
example, for the other monotheistic groups like Christians and Jews, they face Temple Mount, but we face, like if you follow
yeah,
the Quran
yeah,
as your
yeah.
final authority, then you face Mecca. So that in that way, for us, it's different, even though we
Yeah, I
follow the
suppose
same.
so. I mean, the tricky thing about that is knowing what for them is really part of their Sharia and their minhaj. What is, that's for we don't know that, right? I mean, I don't know
Oh yeah,
their scriptures. I don't know what really is part of their Sharia and minhaj and what isn't. So and then I can say what. But in terms of like, for example, could we follow theirs instead of ours? All right. In the end, it's all about guidance. Okay. In our Sharia and Minhaj, there is guidance. In theirs, there is guidance. And what Allah says is, this has been given to them. This has been فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. So just race to goodness.
yeah,
You can race to goodness with this Sharia and Minhaj or with theirs even. Okay.
yeah,
It's not the end of the world for a Muslim to, for example, to convert to Christianity,
yeah,
to become
yeah.
a Christian. Okay, they just have to stick with guidance, right? لستم على شيء حتى تقيموا التوراة. If they establish the Torah and the Injil, they still have something. Okay, so I would say
Okay,
that.
perfect.
In terms of, well, there was one thing I wanted to mention before. What was because you mentioned what verse was about the idea about the wasiyah, right? The wasiyah that it's a third, right? Because that's what's in fiqh, that you shouldn't
Yeah,
bequeath more than a third, right? So I don't consider that to be the idea. I don't think of it to be an abrogation. I think it's just one of the things which the Prophet chose as the urf of his time, because what it says in the Quran, it says, in taraka khayran al-wasiyatu للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف. Okay, by what is customary, or by what is known. And urf is a very big part of the Quran. Okay, and it allows it to be flexible enough to accommodate all different peoples, societies, etc. In some parts of the world, a third might not be considered to be of the ma'ruf, right? Maybe it'll be like half, right? That person can bequeath most of his money, right? And even sort of the Prophet choosing, I think this is one of the things where the Prophet choosing a third, it isn't him abrogating the Quran or confining it or something. Even he even said, the way that hadith comes about is that he was saying basically the maximum I would like, when somebody was asking him, how much should I bequeath? There was basically Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas who had, or Sa'd ibn Ubadah, I forget, who had, who basically he was sick, and the Prophet visited him, and he was sort of worried that he was going to die. Sa'd was, and he was saying to the Prophet, "Look, I have all this wealth, but I have no no children except one daughter. Okay, so should I give 2/3 of my wealth to charity and let her just have a third, right? Because of the, الذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. So he was saying that, and the Prophet said no. So he says, okay, then should I half? Should I bequeath a half? The Prophet said no. And then in the end, he says a third. Okay, if you want to leave some of your wealth to charity, leave a third, and even a third is a lot. Okay, even a third. Don't. It's better to leave your descendants, your children, having wealth than to leave them, who are asking for people eventually. You know what I mean?
yes,
And that's why some of the scholars even said they preferred that people don't bequeath above a quarter, because the Prophet said in that, he said, a third is a lot. Even a third is a lot. So he said, I wish some of, I think it was Imam Malik who said, I wish people would go down from bequeathing a third, bring it down to a quarter. All right. But the point is that I think that's just urf, right? It's part of the urf. It can be bil ma'ruf, because you can say, okay, what is this wasiyah? Okay, can I leave all of my wealth as my bequeath, right? And that sort of flies in the face of the verses which say, how much, God is saying, this much this person, he's sort of given a division to give, right? And if you sort of just say, no, I'm just going to give all of my wealth as a bequeath, okay, that's not bil ma'ruf, okay, that's not a thing which would be a ma'ruf thing to do, a good custom practice to do, would not be acceptable. You know what I mean?
A bit of a
Um,
tangent, because while we're on that subject of talking about changing what is bil ma'ruf, um, from a Quranic perspective, do you have any warrant on changing a will if it isn't bil ma'ruf? Like after the deceased has passed away, because I know that there is a verse, 2 verses later, فَمَنْ خَافَ مِنْ مُسٍ جَنَفًا أَوْ إِثْمًا, whoever fears like the opposite of bil ma'ruf, there is
yeah,
no sin on them if they try and reconcile it.
yeah, yeah,
But if
exactly. So
if
they,
the
they
deceased
can
has
they can
passed
they
away,
can
can you still change the will or not? If it's
yeah. I mean, again, if
because
it
God does
yeah.
say like خير مضار, it shouldn't be of any harm later, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So all of these verses, you've made a very good point. All of these verses are part of the same. They're given this ethical view of how to bequeath, right? And so again, yeah, you're right. Some people could be fearful of the person who is dying, that they will um, out of spite make the will such that it will not favor them. It will give them a short end, will give them the short stick, right?
Yeah,
And so, they are told that they can, try to reconcile that, try to sort it out. It can be taken before a judge, I suppose. But what the Quran in these verses is doing is giving us an outlook about how to approach this. Okay, it's not going to give a firm thing which could, in the end, also be used, also be abused, right? So if it says yes, if we were to say explicitly yes, even if the person who did the wasiyah, if he dies, then yes, the 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 inheritors could afterwards get together and overturn that decision. Okay, that's opening up another avenue for abuse, right?
yeah,
Where so it's rather, it's given general outlines, okay, and it's enjoining of taqwa. So that's why it is haqqan al muttaqeen, right?
yeah,
It's reminding, have some taqwa when you're doing this, okay, bil
yeah,
ma'ruf, and it's haqqan al muttaqeen. In the
yeah. So
end,
God's appealing
when it comes to
to
actual
them.
laws,
Yeah.
okay, the society has a lot of freedom in that, right? The society has a lot of freedom within these general guidelines in the Quran.
Okay. So there is like recourse to change a will if it
Yeah,
isn't.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, that's sort of, again, it's that can be part of the urf, part of something for a society to decide,
but
right?
like, yeah, you should just enjoy
But
justice because of Quran says so. You shouldn't
yeah,
need to fear.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You shouldn't need to fear that. And if there's something which is obvious, which has been done, which is unjust, you can, that can be found out. It's not, it's very difficult to talk about these things just sort of theoretically, right? But
Yeah.
on the ground, when these things are actually happening, right? And these things come before a judge, and he hears the whole story. It can be pretty obvious if the person who wrote the will has did it in such a way, out of spite or hatred to one of his people who would inherit him. And then yes, then if the laws allow it, which they should be able to amend that a little bit. You know.
Thank you so much for having
Um,
me on this stream. I
no,
think
no
I'll just
problem.
step away now to give Brad a chance. But
Yeah, no, it's
yeah,
fine. I think
fascinating
there's
stuff from your part.
one person here waiting. Okay,
Okay.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for coming on.
Bye. Have a good. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, let's bring on. We have Sam. Sam, I'm bringing you on. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How have you been?
Oh, good, thanks. Good, good.
Excellent. Good to hear you again.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, you said something about the Torah is not in the books of Moses. I think you need to read the Old Testament.
I didn't. No, I didn't say that. I said that in the Quran it doesn't mention that Musa was given the Torah. We have this idea that the Torah is Musa's book, right? Where
Yeah.
in
Well,
Islam, at least, right? So just from the Quranic viewpoint, the Quran, the Musa's name and the word Torah never appear in the same verse together anywhere in the Quran. When the Quran talks about what Musa was given, it says he was given a kitab. وَمَنْ نَزَّلَ الْكِتَابَ الَّذِي جَاءَ بِهِ مُوسَى. Who sent down the kitab that Musa came with? It doesn't say the Torah, right? And when it mentions that the Torah, it's never it's never attached to Musa alayhi salam. It's never
yeah,
attached to Musa.
okay, I understand. But I think there's 5 books of Moses, and the way I understand it, them 5 books, they're quite big, and in there you have the Torah in there, and the Torah since then has never
Isn't the
changed.
Torah the Torah is just the 5 books of Musa? Is that how the Jewish people say it, right?
No, it's the Torah. You got the Exodus and Deuteronomy and Numbers and all these books. But in Torah, you got the kind of law in there. So Torah, I think, means law. The law is in the 5 books of Moses.
Is within those books, right?
Yeah, I think it's
the books
maybe,
which are said to be authored by Musa. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it probably extends more. I mean, what the Quran means by the Torah, it extends beyond Musa only. So, and I think as far as I know, anybody who knows better can correct me. But as far as I know, even the Jews would say that they say yes, that the Torah didn't sort of it didn't end sort of with Musa and then that's it. That other prophets later came and sort of added to the law, the Torah.
No,
right?
nothing's been added. The Torah never
No,
changed.
other prophets did not add more laws
No,
to
they
the
didn't.
Israel.
There've
Didn't
been loads
add
of
any
prophets
more.
after Moses, but none of them added to the law, to the Torah, or took away anything from it.
No, but they added laws. Yes,
No,
they gave
no,
laws. No,
no.
I mean they've ruled and they gave laws. Right? The
No,
prophets
all the
after.
laws by God are in the Torah and they haven't changed.
No, look. Musa, for example, he never witnessed the founding of the actual kingdom of Israel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He wasn't there for that, right? This all
That's
happened later, right? So the kingdoms of Israel, they came later, okay? Dawood alayhi salam, Sulaiman alayhi salam, they were all kings and prophets. They gave laws, right? So
Yeah, but
yes,
them
you
laws,
can say,
they were not religious
yeah,
laws.
okay, but I mean that's what I'm saying. So that depends if you want to say define Torah as just the laws that Musa brought, okay, that's one way. But what I'm saying is the Quran doesn't seem to look at it that way. Okay, it does not equate the Torah with Musa in the Quran at all. The Torah in the Quran is mentioned as something which all of the prophets judged by. So I think it, like you said, just means the law. Okay, so the cumulative law. Okay, the cumulative law is the Torah.
It's like even Jesus, yeah, he said, "I've not come to change the law." So
Yeah,
none
exactly.
of
The law, the Torah, exactly the Torah. When he said that, he wasn't just talking about only the laws of that Musa set down.
Yeah, that's it.
Right?
Only them
He
laws.
wasn't. He was. I don't think he was talking about only those laws. He must have been talking about the Torah. What I would say the Torah in its totality, the laws beyond just Musa alayhi salam.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, when you read it, you understand the Old Testament. But it's like you got Islamic country, and they follow the Quran. The Islamic country can make up more laws, but they're not part of the Quran. If you get what I'm saying, they're not divine laws.
No, I
Same as Torah,
definitely
yeah.
agree with that.
You
But
can't.
for example, but they would make some. They would say it's part of the Sharia, right?
Yeah,
They
they
would
can
say
say
Sharia.
that, but it's not divine law.
Yeah,
If
I
it
know,
comes
but
from the Quran, yeah,
that's
it is
what.
divine. But if they make up and they say part of Sharia, yeah, they probably get from the Hadiths or whatever, yeah, then it's
Yeah,
not.
but that's
It's
again.
not
That
divine
comes
law.
down. That comes down to how you name it, right? So I would say that the laws that prophets brought, other than Musa, are still divine law. They're still part of laws, right? So how Dawood alayhi salam set up his kingdom, right? The kingdoms. That was also part of law. I mean, how they divided the land, right? About which clans get what, which priests do what, right? So I think it was what the descendants of Harun alayhi salam, they became the priests or something, and these people, you know, there were these other divisions, these other laws, the other rules that were put in place, okay, and Musa didn't put those in place, right? Now,
the divisions are
and
mentioned in the books of Moses, you know, about the having different tribes having different responsibilities. So
yeah,
that
but no, but later on, when this was when you know which person would have the high priest, these things were set up once the kingdom was set up. Okay.
yeah, but then that wouldn't be a
Um,
law. It was just like, you know, okay, we need to have a, you know, high priest who would be, it wouldn't be a law.
well, I don't know why not. That's what I'm saying. That
Well, then you got the laws that are clearly laid out in the books of Moses, and other things that happen, you know, in different kingdoms. Yeah, a king would make other laws up, but I say it would not be divine law. It would be, you know, kind of, you know, man-made law. But the divine law in the Torah.
no, but we're talking about the judgments of Dawood alayhi salam and Sulaiman alayhi salam. You know, so in the Quran says, "O Dawood, we've made you a khalifa on the earth. Fahkum." You know, so judge by what God has revealed to you. Okay.
Yeah. So according to what?
Judge
Yeah,
by
according to the Torah or in the books of Moses.
So he didn't receive any judgments.
No. Oh,
No,
he got wisdom, but from God. But you know, whatever judgments he made, they wouldn't be kind of like, you know, from a new law that's not in the books of Moses.
maybe I don't know. But the point is, in the end, that in the Quran never equates Torah with Musa alayhi salam. Right. So I don't know what that's. I mean, that's one of the things I would like to speak with you know, if I ever got a chance to one day host a knowledgeable rabbi or something and ask them, well, why would you think that the Quran would say that? Of course, they would say no, you know, it isn't true or it's wrong. I'd say okay, fine, but you know, what would be your best guess as to why the Quran never equates the Torah with Musa? Why is that? Maybe they know something about that, that they can gleam about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but I mean, but it's when you read the Old Testament, yeah, it's just it's amazing that not the other new prophets that came after Moses, no new law was written, and it just shows that I think it's miraculous that, you know, after all these
No, I find that very hard to believe that, you know, of all the prophets that Ben Israel had, that no new laws was written. No, they were.
Read the Old Testament. Read the Old Testament.
And as far as the Quran says, it does mention that Isa alayhi salam made some things which used to be haram. They were made haram because of, you know, as a punishment to Ben Israel before. So that's a law, okay. And then he made them halal again afterwards. Okay, so to make halal what was made haram for you, right? And the Quran mentions how Ben Israel, due to their disobedience, things were made haram for them. Okay, and this was definitely after Musa. So those are laws.
I mean, the thing that God made it easier for the Jews. I mean, even the Quran said, yeah, you know, it's come to make it some of the things that they were, you know, forbidden here is now allowed. So,
yeah, but exactly. So even if you just accept that, let's say the things that were forbidden by Musa alayhi salam. Okay, so now Isa is allowing them. But I don't think that was the case, because the Quran also mentions that because of their dhulm, we made some things haram for them. Because of their oppression, you know, their disobedience, we made some things haram for them. Okay, so things that were good things that were haram, were halal for them, we made them haram. Then later, so this is after Musa, and then later Isa came and made them halal again. Okay, so there's obviously some.
But what those things I don't think it clearly says in Gospels what is made.
Yeah, I know it doesn't say clearly in the Gospels, but again, you know, you know, I don't know the Gospels or the Old Testament. Well, I haven't read them, I haven't looked into them properly. What I can just say from the Quranic side is, just what I just mentioned, that's for a reason which I don't know why. The Torah is never mentioned as a book given to Musa alayhi salam.
Well,
Okay,
I think
as a book given to Musa. Why? I don't know. Okay. What's mentioned is just the kitab, which are the laws, prescriptions, sort of like along what you said. As for like the books of Musa in the Bible, like for example, like I've started reading some of them before, and it just doesn't look like these were things that were written by Musa. I know they say Musa wrote these, but this just doesn't look like Musa's, writing by his own death, for example, about this, about that. There are parts of it which, of course, Musa definitely couldn't have written. Okay, and other parts, Genesis and these parts, they read more like the stories of like almost like the oral traditions of like the narrations and hadith, and like the biography of the prophets, things which are just sort of put together. It doesn't read like one person, Musa alayhi salam, that he wrote these 5 books. It doesn't look like that at all.
I think if you want to learn more about God, you read the Old Testament, and you learn, you get a kind of much more deeper understanding of God, and I found it amazing when I sort of kind of read it nearly twice, and
Yeah,
it also
I should get around to it, like I said. But every time I've started, just sort of breaks down because it gets very it's very wild.
Yeah, there's some things that you don't understand, but I said over time you begin to understand that this is a different kind of you just get more deep understanding, and some things you won't like in there, but it is what it is, and just
Yeah, again, I mean that's fine, but I mean I would just like to know regarding that issue. I mean I would really like to ask somebody about that. Why do you think that the Quran that mentions the Torah has been, because that seems like with the Jews in Medina, and even from like an atheist secular perspective, okay, why would that be when they have these ideas that the Prophet was trying to bring the Jews over their side, etc. So why sort of like have that? And it's not even like something which is noted. Muslims don't note it. Not like something. Is it something like people only noted sort of recently that the Torah and Musa are never mentioned together. It's not like it's even a point of contention which is brought up during the Prophet's time or something like that. It wasn't like used for any purpose. Nobody even notes it. They just say, okay, yeah, the kitab that was given to Musa, that's the Torah, and that's it. Okay, so it's not even not that subtlety is not even acknowledged by Muslims for centuries.
The other thing I want to talk about is I think Sunniism is not Islam. It's a different religion, and it's kind of same in the way as Christianity and the Jews. They made up their own kind of religion, and now they're going around and making out this is Islam, but it's not. And for me, it's like I think it's confusing to people. I mean, they think people are kind of enticed to Islam by the Quran, and then when they follow the Quran, then they're told that you must believe in all the say Hadiths as well.
Yeah, that's very
And
true.
then they got their own kind of different, their own Sharia. They got their Sharia, some from the Quran, some from the Hadith, and a new convert comes and it's like
step by step they're led down that weird path. Yes, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean, because it's that's why a lot of times if I advise new Muslims or new converts in anything, I tell them, look, just hold on. Those things which led you to Islam in the first place, hold on to them within Islam, because they will also guide you there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it is like you said, they enter Islam because of the Quran, and then once in, they're led, they're saddled with um, all of this baggage on top of it.
Yeah, and I've seen debates here where the Sunni Muslims are always going after the Christians, most of the Christians. They try and go after the Jews as well, but not as much, I don't think.
Mm.
But especially with the Christians, yeah, it's like they're always out there to kind of humiliate them and prove how wrong they are. And this is against what the Quran says, and
Yeah, definitely.
I guess what even the Prophet did as well. I don't know exactly what he did, but going around and then kind of belittling people
Yeah.
and saying you're wrong and this, you know,
Yeah, that
why is
belligerent attitude and that constantly criticizing the Bible and this and exactly all of that, it is haram because the Quran, with regards to the people of the book, it specifically says um, do not debate them or argue with them except by that which is best or most beautiful. إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Um, and that's because without that you chase them away when really they're very close.
yeah, and
There's no.
so far you've seen you know, it doesn't change most of Christians who are kind of devout Christians. All it
Mm.
is, they have a kind of like a shouting match or something, trying to just prove each other wrong, whatever, and
Yeah,
there's no benefit to anyone. And
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thinking, what you're thinking, as a Muslim, yeah, you're meant to just, you can just pass on the message. If someone asks you, you can say, "This is the Quran, yeah. This is what I
mm,
believe in. This is what I follow," and that's it. There's no need, otherwise, no one needs to say, "Okay, the Trinity is wrong and this and that." Yeah, the Quran says itself, and if
mm.
the Christians choose to believe it, fine. If they don't, fine.
Yeah. There's no need for elaborate arguments. There's no need for these
I mean,
huge elaborate
if the
arguments.
Christians want an argument about Trinity, fair enough. You can argue with them about it, but there's no point in going there just to trying to show them up or kind of belittle them, because the Christians
Yeah.
never going to win the argument. And it's kind of known, and even with Hindus, yeah, you can't really. Hindus can. So the way I say, not none of the religions here have anything against the Quran, you know,
Mm,
and they're all going to kind of lose, but
mm,
there's no benefit in kind of showing them up and
yeah.
proving them wrong. This is
Mm,
the way I say, you try and invite him. Yeah, say, look, this is what we believe in. This is what we think the truth. And if you feel the same, go and read, and it's up to you
mm.
to choose.
Yeah. I haven't
And
seen those in a long time, to be honest. I haven't seen um, videos like that or that sort of scene in a very long time. I don't know if it's even does it still go on pretty heartily in Speaker's Corner and places like that. It's still at full throttle.
I mean,
It's
so
last
so the
time
way
I visited Speaker's Corner when I was in the UK with a friend. He said the best one liner. He said, "Man, this place is like an open air madman asylum." It's crazy, and to be honest, I don't like it because it used to be. I remember a long time ago, it used to be a balanced place to go, but now it's just over. It's just Muslims have overrun it, have
yeah,
taken it over. You know, Muslims have completely taken over Speaker's Corner. There's nothing. There's nothing. You go over there, and it's basically, you know,
yeah,
just
yeah,
Muslims
yeah.
everywhere.
And the way I say, the only way to defeat the Muslim argument, yeah, is when you go to the Hadith. So
Mm,
you know, you know, if you go to, you can say, okay, there's a hadith about the kind of the suckling, or this hadith about, I don't know, says, if you do eat camel meat or something, you gotta do wudu, whatever.
mm,
You can sort of defeat them that way. But
mm.
I've tried to get on these streams, yeah, and every time I start off, yeah, you know, they just want to kick you off, because the way I say, they don't really have good arguments against some of these hadiths. So
Not
then,
just that, they want for these streams. They want something saucy. They want to be able to flex and they want to be able to, and they want somebody who's like going to get the blood pumping for viewers and these kind of stuff. They don't want.
Yeah,
They want
I
just
think
somebody to
they're
speak.
trying to get people to convert, but then again, I'm thinking, okay, it's good you're trying to get people to convert, yeah. But then again, once they convert, yeah, they're gonna make him into Sunnis, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
it's conversion to Sunni Islam, of course.
and I
What
say,
else? They're not going to convert him to Shia, right? They're going to convert him to some other sect. They're going to convert them to themselves.
and so when you're new to Islam, yeah, you think you kind of, I guess you're probably kind of gonna be quite lost in a way, you don't really know.
Yeah, it's a very sensitive time. It's a very I don't like to use the word vulnerable, but it is a vulnerable time, right? Because you convert, you have zeal, and really want to get into things, and you just have to take people's word for what is right, what is wrong, who to be careful of. Be careful of these people. Be careful of these people. Right? So they get these new converts scared of speaking to other viewpoints. So once what's the first hadith they will hear as soon as they've become Muslim? Oh, you need to understand something, right? The Prophet said that this ummah would divide into 73 sects, all of them in hell except one, and the one which is on right is this one, and so straight away they get told that, and they are made to be afraid of engaging of any other with any other groups of Muslims, and they are told to just everybody else is deviant, etc. So, and they don't know the truth of it. They don't know that they can't sort of like rebuttal this hadith. They say, okay, the Prophet said that. The Prophet said that. It's a prophecy, and yeah, they get pulled away. That's why it was one of the first set of translations I did on my channel was to translate videos debunking the saved sect hadith, because from what I saw, maybe it's changed now, but from what I saw, that was used as a hook for a lot of people. Right, that's sort of like they forget that is what set them on a certain path within Islam, but really that is what set them on a certain path, right? Because I used to see that somebody becomes religious, and they get told that as a first step, okay, and that already points them in a certain direction, and then they walk that way and they continue walking that way. Okay, and then they might forget that was the hadith which led to all of this. Okay, and if they had just taken some time and sort of questioned that, right, then maybe they would not be, they wouldn't have gone the way that they went. They wouldn't have been so quick to sort of like become dogmatic and fossilized in believing that this is the right sect and etc. And what we know is the right way.
Yeah, and I was thinking, the only way I see out of this, yeah, is if people read the Quran, just read the Quran, yeah, and let God guide them. Keep reading it, and it might not make sense, make 6 months, year, 2 year, but over time, I think you will start making more sense, and you will start questioning. Okay, why does it say this? But in this hadith, you're saying this. So I think it's just a matter of people being taking, just. I see people being scared off. You need to know Arabic to understand the Quran, and they kind of scared off again. But so you don't need to know Arabic, and you read it, and God will guide you. I mean,
it's a tangled web. I mean, how to untangle somebody who's in sort of the sort of who's like falling into sort of like the hardcore Sunnism or Salafism trap. How do you untangle them? It's a difficult one to figure out. For different people, it's going to be in different ways. But yeah, and some people are more courageous than others. Some people are willing to sort of like entertain certain things and discuss certain things. Some people will not. They sort of just want to shove their fingers in their ears, right? And don't want to listen. So how you can untangle different people? It depends. Sometimes the best way isn't, I think, to get them just sort of like you said, just just read the Quran, because they've filled themselves with so much false information that they can only read the Quran through that false information. Sometimes you have to put some holes into the actual into the things which they have surrounding the Quran, right? So that you find that where they are, they can't but read the Quran through the lenses of all of this inheritance, of traditions and narrations and things like this. And the only way is to really get them to question that that these things are not as solid as you actually think they are. And then they can then they can start to differentiate the Quran from the inherited lot that they see, right? Because then they start to see, okay, this is not so solid. So, but again, I think it's a case by case thing. It's very, very complicated a lot of the times, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, like you said, it really doesn't have to be. But it is because there's just so many hurdles over it. They're small hurdles, but it's strange. It's strange. Yeah, and like Adrian says, diseases of the heart come into it as well, right? So I mean, the hurdles are enough for somebody who's just sincere, okay, and then a person who themselves has certain diseases of the heart, like they don't want to be wrong, right? So if they start an argument with you, or they start discussing something with you, even if during the middle of it, they sort of start to suspect that they might be wrong, they push that out of their heart and they double down on it, So you can have people like this that they will just not accept to be wrong no matter what, right? They just will not. So you get these problems. It's a bunch of things. A lot.
Yeah, well, that was it. That's what I want to say. I think Sunnism is just another religion. It's not Islam, and it's. I hope more people just start being more brave, read the Quran, and questioning. I know there are kind of closet kind of Quranic Muslims, but they often get kind of ridiculous, shouted down, and they have to keep quiet. But I think I don't know. Maybe it's always meant to be like this, because even in the Quran, it's you got some Jews here who believe in the Quran, and Christians as well, I guess. But there are only a few of them, and you say they're saved because they recognize the scripture, the Quran. And I guess it's the same now. You got most Sunnis, they're just blindly following what they're taught. And only as a few are actually reading it and questioning it and understanding it properly.
Yeah, I mean the most important thing I would say in all of these kind of religious discussions now is to help people focus more on the guidance within just the general guidance, right, rather than on this or that. So help people focus on trying to do more good, be more honest, seek out taqwa, understand ihsan, have more khushu', more humility, right? So I think it's these are more important. I mean, it's better for somebody to be a Sunni Muslim who is who is active in avenues of guidance, right? Even if he believes in the whole of the Sunni Islam sort of thing, but he's active in the avenues of guidance. That's better than somebody being, a Qur'anist sort of who knows it all, but isn't active in avenues of guidance, and maybe they're actually doing engaged in a lot of bad actions.
That's true.
So it's just more important to push people towards what these religions were there to push people towards in the first place, which is towards guidance, towards establishing justice, right? We should never forget that the whole point of God sending the scriptures and the messengers was that sort of mankind may establish justice, right? لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, right? And so trying to push people more towards that, make them aware of the of the pathways of shaitan, of what shaitan is pushing towards, more towards animosity, to hatred, to saying about God that which you do not know, to indecency, to making you be afraid of poverty, making people aware of this road and that road, okay, and pushing them towards the high road, the higher road, that is more important even than sort of convincing them that the narration is all wrong or false or these sort of things. I think really need to the religious discourse that you see around, it's far too focused on these sort of like intellectual outlooks on religion, and less on and not enough on pushing people towards following guidance, right? These are supposed to be paths, right?
No, I agree. Because in the end, you see, deeds will get into heaven, and it's not, even though you know the Quran very well and everything, it's not really going to matter. It's when it's your heart and your deeds. So it is important to get the good deeds done, rather than argue about the text reading.
Exactly. All right then. Okay, brilliant, Sam. Thanks for coming on again. See if you can find out. To be honest, go try and find out this whole issue of the Torah and if there's any ideas of anybody seen why is the Torah, why doesn't the Quran mention the Torah with Musa? Because it's an interesting thing. It's something I've always wanted to ask a rabbi or somebody like that. But I have not a clue as what they would say about that. But it will be an interesting thing to know about. So if you ever find out about that, please come on again and let me know.
Yeah, I'll try.
No. Okay, brilliant. Okay, I'll remove you. No problem. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. All right. Okay. So I think. Yeah, Sunnism is a mockery against the Prophet Muhammad and against Allah. That can definitely be perfectly argued. All right, people. I don't think there's anything else I've missed on the chat. All of these are looking up higher. All of these are older chats. All right, so I guess I'll end it there. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Assalamu alaikum.